Hello and welcome to the Ask Dr. Pickel show. And today we've got an exciting topic. I recently went to a conference, over 100 doctors at this conference. Great conference, a lot of different information, research that was shared, and some of it goes with today's topic, and that's what I wanted to talk about. And yes, I went to this conference. Why am I going to a conference when coronavirus is going on and all this other stuff, being around all these other people and doctors? Well, I came back, tested negative for any viruses. So just to let you know, we're good there. But definitely very important information that I want to share in regard to osteoporosis, osteopenia. So if you have either one of these conditions, or if you don't, but you think you may be susceptible, this information is for you. And if you don't know much about us, if this is your first time watching, welcome. I'm Dr. Jason Pickel, and I practice functional medicine, and I'm also a board-certified chiropractic neurologist. So we find answers for patients who have chronic health conditions, chronic health issues, people with autoimmune conditions, people who just have trouble finding answers, no matter how hard they've tried or where they've been. So today, osteoporosis, osteopenia, I want to dive right in with this, some exciting information. And you know what, to date, there really isn't many answers for people with osteoporosis and osteopenia. There's maybe some medications out there. And I won't talk a lot about those medications, except that these medications have very long side effect lists. Some of the side effects of these very dangerous. If you ask any dentists if you should take these medications for osteopenia, osteoporosis, they're going to tell you, no, don't do it because of osteonecrosis of the jaw. Because what they'll do is they will start looking at your dental x-rays. They'll start looking at your jaw on one of your visits. And if you're taking these meds, sometimes they'll find that the jaw is almost gone. Because it has been degraded so much. So these meds do have some issues. Also, these meds do not actually change the bone quality. They change the bone quantity. So you can change the quantity. You can put more bone on the outside of a bone, and it'll look better on an x-ray or imaging or your scan. But the quality of the bone didn't change. It didn't actually decrease your fracture rate, which really doesn't help the problem anyway. So we've got to look at this from a different direction and use some of the newer information here. All right, so let's dive right in with this and get this started. Okay. So what is osteoporosis? This is interesting because, you hear about it, and you can even put osteopenia here too. Osteoporosis means porous bone. The bone is losing its density. It's losing its quality. So we can get an easier rate of fracture with that bone, which is not good. You don't want to just, bump into something or have a little fall and suddenly you break a hip and end up in surgery. Not a good thing. And this can be kind of life-threatening sometimes too. So not good at all. So then we look at the bone. If we look at it under the microscope, you can see the differences between the normal bone, the osteoporotic bone. You can really see the density, the amount of bone that's starting to be missing here. Now, it was thought not too very long ago that osteoporosis, osteopenia were a natural consequence of aging. And now we know that this is not a normal progression and it can be prevented. So the thing is there are many things that can promote osteoporosis and osteopenia. There's not just one thing that this does it, but also there's even some research that shows that this can be due to autoimmune issues where the immune system is attacking the bone or the processes that help you manufacture bone. So again, this isn't just, I'm getting older. All right, so how do they measure it? Usually what you'll go in, we can do this, or you can go to other doctors and places and we can run a test, a bone density scan. We'll send you to an imaging place and they'll come back with a T-score usually, which is the more common score that you'll look at, recognized by the World Health Organization. And you either have the normal density of the bone. Osteopenia means you're just starting to have some problems. And then osteoporosis means more of a full-blown issue. You've lost a lot of density there. All right. So the thing we got to know about bone is it's not like this rock that's just in our body that's constantly the same all the time. Bone is constantly remodeling to pressure and change. Let's say I go in and I start doing weightlifting exercises with one arm, but I don't use the other arm at all. The bone in the arm that I'm exercising will actually start to become larger and stronger, whereas the side I'm not using at all won't change much at all. So again, bones under pressure change, they remodel, and we need this remodeling process to occur. So how does this occur? There's little guys in our body, not guys, they could be girls too, osteoclasts and osteoblasts. Osteoclasts break down the old bone and resorb it. Osteoblasts lay down the new bone. We got this constant process of bone being laid back down, new bone added in, old bone taken away. We don't want old bone hanging on, because what happens with the old bone? It breaks easily. So we need new, fresh bone laid down. Just like our skin grows. You know, we get dead skin at the top, it sloughs off, and then we have new skin underneath that grows. It's the same thing with bone. So, but there's more of a bigger process with bone because it is a little tougher to get rid of than skin just sloughing off or washing off in our bath or shower. All right, so this formation process, the osteoblasts come and fill in the cavities, the clasts take it out. During childhood is when we really grow our bones. This is when bones grow really fast. We've got a lot of osteoblastic activity. The bone becomes more dense. Our skeleton grows, so it makes sense. Now, about at 30 years old, the bone removal kind of exceeds the bone growth. We kind of reach our peak size of our bones. This is normal. But then, especially in women who tend to suffer more from osteoporosis, osteopenia, once they hit menopause, yeah, we start to lose bone mass. And that's due to some hormonal changes that occur. Now, here's the thing with hormones, though. Because, you know, it's not okay, when a woman reaches menopause, you're going to have these menopausal symptoms and feel lousy all the time. And it's just something of a change of life that you have to go through. That's a bunch of baloney. All right. So the important thing to understand here, there are a lot of women, a whole lot, who they go through menopause or they have a hysterectomy, ovaries and uterus maybe just retire. They have no symptoms at all. They're like, yeah, I went into menopause. I didn't notice anything. The only way I knew is because I stopped menstruating, and I didn't get any hot flashes. I didn't feel lousy at all. I just felt fine. There are some women that say, I feel like a truck hit me. I've got hot flashes. I'm growing hair in places that I shouldn't. My libido is really low. You know, all these symptoms start to occur. So what's the difference? How come some women are fine, some women are not? It all has to do with your adrenal glands. Your adrenal glands are your backup source of all your female hormones. So when the ovaries and uterus get taken out or when they retire, the adrenal glands take over. You know, even despite that, your adrenal glands in women are that's your only source of testosterone. But then when you go into menopause or you have hysterectomy, the adrenal glands now make other hormones that turn into estrogen and progesterone. And you need these, and you need these in good levels. But if the adrenal glands have been stressed out, they've been overworked, they've been, you know, you've had all these factors affect you, and you have other health problems that affect the adrenal glands, then yeah, they can't make the hormones that you need. So do you need some hormone replacement? Maybe you might, you know, but again, would the bigger and better goal be to get your adrenal glands working properly? That would be the top of my list. Now, in the meantime, maybe you need some hormones just to get rid of some symptoms, just to halt some bone loss. Yeah, possibly. Just also make sure that these hormones, in my opinion, are bioidentical hormones. You know, when you hear about hormones like estrogen and women saying, hey, there's these studies that show if you do estrogens, that can increase risk of cancer. Well, it's interesting because all those studies are done with synthetic estrogens. They're not done with natural hormones, bioidentical hormones. So how do we know that those do the same thing? So again, I'm not saying that everyone needs the same hormones or needs hormones, but again, sometimes it can be a helpful factor. And then when you hit about 65, also men can be affected too with these things. And, there's some bone loss normal with age, but it shouldn't be excessive. And especially, it becomes excessive if certain scenarios are going on, which we'll get to here. All right. So really, the research is saying everyone potentially is at risk. This was interesting to read. So basketball players lost bone mass during a year period due to the loss of calcium through their sweat. Are you losing calcium through your sweat? Are you a runner, a long distance runner? Do you sweat excessively with your exercise, and do you exercise a lot? Yeah, you're risking, even though it's like, hey, I'm working out all the time, my bone density should be fantastic. Well, if you're not absorbing calcium, if there's not, a lot of people, calcium in our diet is plenty. It's not usually an issue of not getting enough in. It's usually that you're not absorbing what you bring in. And then also, if you are absorbing it, are you losing it at a faster rate than you can keep it in? And there's a lot of places in our body that use calcium besides our bones. So we've got to look at that too. In fact, 99% of our body's calcium storage is in our bones, is in our teeth. So we know that it's important to have calcium to make bone, but there are so many other things that are needed to get the calcium from point A to point B. So that's really what more of this is about. Here's another interesting thing too, that protein actually increases the amount of calcium that leaves the body. So if you're big into exercise and you're sweating a lot, losing calcium, plus you're on a very high protein diet, you just increased your risk of osteoporosis, osteopenia, which you would think just the opposite. Exercise, lots of protein. So again, you got to look at it from that way too. Now, the thing is a lot of your proteins, like meats and veggies, they contain a lot of calcium too. So these would be people who are more on really high protein diets, excessive protein. All right. Also, fat plays a big part in a lot of things, but fat is also necessary for calcium to work. And when I say fats, that means fatty acids, fats and oils in our diet. Not only do we need them in our diet, but we need to be able to absorb them. If the gut's inflamed, you won't absorb fatty acids very well. If you have a gallbladder issue, if your gallbladder has been removed, you may not absorb fatty acids very well. If your digestive system's inflamed and you're not making enzymes properly, you may not absorb fatty acids very well. And we've got certain fat-soluble vitamins that are included in this that are extremely important. Your vitamin A, your vitamin D, your vitamin K, your vitamin A, D, E, and K. I hope I said them all there. Very important, not only for hormones, that's the mother of all of our fat, of all of our hormones, is fatty acids, cholesterol. Cholesterol is the mother of all of our hormones, and that comes from the fats we eat. These oils also make the oils in our skin, our hair, our nails. All of our hormones, such as our thyroid hormones, adrenal hormones, are made from these fats and oils. And our brain, for clear thinking, our brain is made of fatty acids. We need fats. So how does this fit into calcium? We're going to talk about that. So here's some things to stay away from if you have osteoporosis or osteopenia, or if you're wanting to just be healthy anyway. Avoid white flour, the soft drinks, the sugar. These really rob your calcium. We call them the banditos. And then we have the Amigos, your good fats. We just talked about those. Fruits and veggies, extremely important. A lot of minerals in there. And whole grains. Now, some people with certain digestive issues, food intolerances, autoimmune conditions, certain grains really cause problems for them, increase inflammation. So you have to be careful with the grain side. All right. Oops, let's go back one. Okay. All right. Oops, I think I'm in the wrong button. Sorry, guys. Okay. One more here. Okay. And then being sedentary. Let's say you don't exercise at all. You don't do anything at all. Let's say you're at a computer all day long, and then you go home from work and you're in front of the TV sitting on the couch all that night, and then you go to bed, and the next day same thing over and over. Is that good for your bones? No, not at all. You've got to get activity, and bones need stress. They need, I mean, not like emotional stress, but they need physical stress. They need gravity. They need you pounding on them to get them stronger. That's what they need to stay healthy. They need that. In fact, if you think about astronauts in space, what happens to them? They lose bone density because of the lack of gravity. That's why they come back with all kinds of actual problems potentially. That's why they have to exercise in space to maintain that, and a lot of other things too can occur. But definitely really need to not be sedentary. Now, what does vitamin D do? Because that's what we're going to start to talk about. How does vitamin D fit into this picture? Vitamin D, yeah, osteoporosis is on this list, but vitamin D plays a part in so many other things, not just bone health, especially the immune system. It plays a big part, but this is a pretty big list. And we're going to talk about more how vitamin D fits into this whole picture. But for osteoporosis, osteopenia, you need vitamin D. In fact, if you go in and you get your vitamin D level tested at your doctor, if it's, if the doctor says, hey, you're at a 30, 35, you're under a 40, but that's okay. You're good. You're still in a normal range. No, not if you have osteoporosis, osteopenia, or not if you have other health conditions. We want to see that vitamin D level a lot higher. A lot of sources show that vitamin D should be I would like to see it between about 70 to 100. We need to get vitamin D up. And if your vitamin D is that low, either you're not getting any sunshine, or you're not getting it through the diet, or your body's using it too fast, or you have a genetic issue where your body doesn't utilize vitamin D properly. So any of those scenarios can be at play. There are many places in the body where vitamin D is utilized. Now, this isn't what it affects. These are like doorways in our body where vitamin D can come in. So it's very interesting. And when it says VDR, that means vitamin D receptors. Receptors are like doorways where the vitamin D comes to your cell and knocks on the door and says, hey, I'm here. And these receptors have to work properly, and then these organs and systems intake that vitamin D and utilize it for different things. So you really need this, not only vitamin D, but you need those receptors working. Some people do have a genetic issue, a vitamin D receptor polymorphism, or a VDR SNP. If you look at like your 23andMe test and it says VDR on it and it's a positive for a problem, yeah, then you're going to need a lot more vitamin D than the average person to get your vitamin D levels up, to get vitamin D in the doorway and have those receptors intake enough to help you. Because your blood level won't really matter at that point, because if you have a genetic issue, you probably need to be over 100 on your vitamin D blood levels. Now, another thing that factors into this is we've got calcium metabolism. So we eat something, we get something in our system that brings in calcium, we take some calcium. That calcium doesn't just magically go to our bones. It has to go through a process. And really, this is what all this is about, because osteoporosis isn't cured by taking calcium. This is what it was thought at sometime in the past, was that, hey, you take your calcium, you're good. No. That never worked. In fact, people have gotten worse. Osteoporosis has increased. So the thing is calcium doesn't play the part. In fact, they had to lower the RDA of calcium because too much calcium, which women were taking, actually causes negative effects in the body. So too much is just as bad as not enough. And in fact, it can cause inflammation in the brain. So we don't want too much calcium. And actually, calcium can start to go to other areas in the body that it should not, and deposit. So when we have calcium metabolism, what are two critical things? These fat soluble, actually more than two, but these first two critical things, vitamin A and vitamin D. You got to have those things. If you're low, which most people are low in vitamin A, just as bad as vitamin D. If those are low at all, then you can't make these two things on this list, osteocalcin and matrix GLA. You can't make them, you can't utilize them properly. And then so these are critical elements in the manufacturing of bone and bone health. So we've got to have these fat-soluble vitamins, D, A, vitamin K1, vitamin K2. Now, vitamin K1 is also involved in blood clotting, platelet manufacturing. So it's important, but vitamin K2 they're both important, but the K2 is even more important with this. So these fat-soluble vitamins, extremely important. There's some food, there's lots of food sources for these, but are you getting them in daily? And are you absorbing what you're taking in? And that's usually one of the problems with people who have chronic health issues. They aren't absorbing these great things that they're either taking with foods or with supplements. And so again, you've got to have these factors in order for this osteocalcin, this matrix GLA to work. And also, we not only need the osteocalcin to bring it into the bone, but we need the matrix GLA to prevent the calcium from depositing in the wrong places. Because if it deposits in the wrong places, this can be a problem too. So if calcium starts to deposit in your arteries, you get hardening of your arteries. If it deposits in your kidneys, you can get kidney stones. If it deposits in your muscles or soft tissues, yeah, you can have these areas where there's like these hardening areas within, or a calcification of a muscle. And pineal gland, this is where you make melatonin, which affects your sleep-wake cycle and affects your immune system. So you don't want that calcifying. It's this matrix GLA that helps prevent that. So not only does the osteocalcin come in and help the vitamin or help the calcium to go to the right places, the bones, the nerves, the muscles, but it prevents the matrix GLA also works at the same time to prevent the calcium from going to the wrong places, or to clean house if the calcium has deposited in there due to inflammation. So this is very interesting, and this is a big thing because, it again takes away that thought that calcium is the main player here. Calcium's not the player. The players are the transporters and the things that help utilize the calcium. Because again, you can take all the calcium you want, but it won't get into your bones. You won't build bone density without these fat-soluble vitamins. A1, crucial. There's another factor I'm going to talk about here in a minute too that's very important. So again, getting back to the vitamin D receptor, it also plays another part in things. The vitamin D receptor, which is the doorway for vitamin D, also plays a role with tyrosine. There's an enzyme called tyrosine hydroxylase. Don't worry about that. But tyrosine is critical. What do we use tyrosine to do? We use tyrosine in our body to make dopamine and thyroid hormones. So if you're low in vitamin D, you can't make thyroid hormones properly. You can't make dopamine properly. What's dopamine do? I've talked about that in one of our other videos. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter. It helps keep your brain healthy. It helps with, when people get real irritable, like when their blood sugar drops low, or they crave caffeine in cigarettes, or if they just kind of in a bad mood all the time or depressed. This is low dopamine. So vitamin D can be a factor. And that's why when people are low in vitamin D, it can affect them mentally as well. All right. And also, to what degree does it affect? If you have an issue where you're low in vitamin D, especially if you have a genetic issue with your vitamin D receptors, like we talked about, this can reduce the amount by 30 to 50% of this tyrosine hydroxylase. And now you really can't make dopamine. All right, what can help with all this? Well, exercise. We kind of briefly talked about it. High impact exercise, low impact exercise, resistance training. All these things are in the research showing if you do these, you initiate bone health. You are putting pressure on your bones, which causes them to become stronger. That activates a lot of these factors we just talked about. But again, if you're exercising and you're low in calcium, or if you're low in any of the fat-soluble vitamins, fatty acids, vitamin D, A, K1, K2, then even the exercise isn't going to help you the way it could or should. Now, your exercise, it should be not fast but slow. This is again from the research. Not jerky but smooth, and focused. And I would say there's a mental aspect with exercise too that works really well. That's while you're exercising, think about these bones, think about these muscles. there's a part that plays in. There's that mental side that plays into this also. So look at that. Now, here's something I want to talk about that's newer, that I've seen some research on in the past, but not as much as I've seen now. And it's really pretty an amazing nutrient that the research really showing that this is one of the main players, one of the main things that can help with osteoporosis and osteopenia. The research is showing that it is potentially has the potential for reversing and improving this issue. All right, so this was interesting where they took these 3 studies. They have the people on ipraflavone and comparing to just calcium alone, and look at the difference. I mean, actually, some of these people who just took calcium alone got worse. Whereas the people who used the ipraflavone, especially in the 3rd study, yeah, I mean, this really enhanced the action of calcium. So what does it do? It inhibits that bone resorption. It prevents so much osteoclastic activity, which can occur due to inflammation, that can occur due to lack of exercise. This is going to slow bone loss. Now, just like this says, it also promotes bone formation. So we're slowing bone loss, we're increasing bone formation. So we stimulate osteoblastic activity, bone protein manufacturing, facilitates how minerals work. And in the matrix of the bone isn't just made of calcium, it's made of a bunch of other minerals too. And this is going to help all those different things, the ipraflavone. So pretty amazing stuff. So, you know, I was very impressed with the ipraflavone and these other things. Let me switch back here. All right. And so, you know, I think it's this combination. You've got to have this whole combination. But there's one more thing I want to add to the mix, especially if you have osteoporosis, if your osteopenia is persisting. Another factor that I find works great and really helps in the office, and actually has research behind it too, is called PEMF, pulsed electromagnetic frequency. Let me see if I can add that real quick here. PEMF, sorry. Pulsed electromagnetic. All right. Sorry, guys, that was a quick delay there. So this PEMF therapy, it's based on frequency. It's electromagnetic waves that are pulsed at certain frequencies, which is a lot of what we do around here. It has to do with frequencies. So if you take these specific frequencies, what is found is, you know, these original machines that were around a long time ago, even back in the 70s, these would be like bone stimulators. So if you broke a bone and it didn't heal, you would use these bone stimulators, and from an electromagnetic frequency would cause the bone to heal. And some guy said, hey, if this will make bones heal, what else can we use it for? So now it's got all kinds of uses. So I really like this technology. I've tried quite a few of them, some different ones the doctors have had, that patients have even brought me to try out, things like that, before I purchased the unit that we have. But definitely this PEMF unit I really like. You can really feel it, and it's a pulsing sensation. It's really fairly comfortable, and I mean, you can make it pretty strong, but that's the key though. We want to get the right frequency, and then we want the right strength to produce pressure on your bones. And this kind of accelerates the bone healing process. Just like it heals fractures, also it can help to heal, or a bone stimulator would heal fractures. This table would be used to promote bone strength and help to get that bone into that process of more osteoblastic activity, and have the other processes work properly. So PEMF and other things. So if we just kind of put it all together, I would say number one, make sure your fat soluble vitamins are there. There's a company now that I really like. They make a lot of whole food supplements. But their supplement is called, I think it's DA, K1, K2, where they put all those fat solubles at the right ratios into one supplement, so you don't have to have 4 different bottles or 3 different bottles of all your fat solubles, and it's just a little tiny pill. That's one of them that I prefer. I mean, because you want to get that in as a separate thing, and you want a certain dose per day. Doses per day will vary per person, so that's why we've got to find out where you're at. And then also the ipraflavone. Again, there's different sources of that. Sometimes they sell it with calcium combined, which I like that form, but also they have one without calcium. We can kind of determine which one you need, and also the dosage is important with that too. And also, again, some different formulations that I like the best with that. And then also your exercise, combining with that. Now, exercise is going to vary. If you already have really weak bones, you can't do the exercise that someone else who's maybe just osteopenic can do. So again, there's also a way to look at that and say, what exercise can we at least start with and work our way up? And then, of course, also adding in the PEMF and other nutritional aspects, and really looking at the health as a whole, because there's certain factors that have to be in play, and especially absorption. I mean, you can take some great supplements, you can do some great stuff diet-wise, but if your gut's inflamed and you're not absorbing, then those supplements can end up in the toilet. So we want to make sure that that's not a factor too. So I hope everybody enjoyed this. And I think this is very important information on osteoporosis, especially in regards to the fat-soluble vitamins and the ipraflavone. To learn more, don't hesitate to call or ask us. Also, reach out to us on Facebook and YouTube. Don't hesitate to share us and give us the thumbs up or the happy faces or whatever. All right. Well, everybody have a wonderful day, and I hope you enjoy this information. God bless.